This week we travel back to India, the birthplace and the incubator of many of the games that we play today. This week I'll talk about one of the more popular race games that may be as old as 2,300 years. So join me in the Wayback Machine once more for a short trip to the far past. According to some sources, there are references to this game in one of the greatest epics in all of Indian history. The Mahabharata was composed somewhere between 300 BC and 300 CE. That's sort of an estimate. Nobody really knows exact dates. But this massive poem contains 24,000 verses, and it reached its final form, the current form, at around the year 400. In that great epic, several games are mentioned by name, primarily a game called Pasha, but also Shalpur, Pachisi, and Chaturanga. Although the text doesn't specifically name this game Chowka Bhara, the game is definitely very similar to Pachisi, so I guess it's logical to assume that it dates to about the same period. Now, there are two factors that made this research kind of difficult. India has many different languages within its borders, many different subcultures. In fact, there are 22 official languages in the nation of India. So although I'm using the name Chowka Bhara for this game in this video, all of these names refer to the same game. Some of these names refer to local, regional versions of the game, slight differences in the rules. You might call them regional house rules. Well, I found one reference that clearly said that the game developed in the southern region in a place called Karnataka. Please forgive me for my mispronunciation of any of these words. And so for the purpose of this video, I used their terminology, which is Chowka Bhara. So let's jump right into the how it's played segment, shall we? And I'll see you in a few minutes. The Chowka Bhara game board is normally a 5x5 array of spaces, with some spaces crossed, as you see here. It's a game for 2, 3, or 4 players, but it feels a little awkward with 3 players. The randomizers used in the game are traditionally a set of 4 cowrie shells. You can use any set of binary dice, like stick dice or coins. They work just as well. Each player will control 4 pegs of a single color. These start off the board. Through the course of the game, players will go in turn from the start player leftward around the table. The first player can be chosen any way you like. On each turn, a player will toss the cowrie shells, then move a peg. The result of tossing the cowries is shown on this table. 1 flat side up equals a move of 1, and no more rolls can be made. 2 flat side up is a move of 2, and no more rolls can be made. 3 flat side up is a move of 3, and no more rolls can be made. 4 flat side up is an ashta. Enter a peg onto the path, or add 4 to the total so far, and another toss is made. None flat side up is a chama. Enter a peg onto the path, or add 8 to the total so far, and another toss is made. It's not a choice. If you roll ashta or kama, you must roll again. Note that a player may roll multiple times during a turn before you move any pegs, and you continually add the results together to get a total. If a player throws either a chama or an ashta 3 times consecutively during their turn, they've busted. It means their turn's over and they cannot use any of the total accumulated during that turn. After all the cowries have been tossed and the totals determined, the player can move 1 or more of their pegs, the total number of spaces. The first move for any peg is to enter the game at the center of the player's edge of the board. Pegs enter the board immediately after a chama or ashta is thrown. It's not mandatory to enter a new peg on the board. The result could be used to move a peg or pegs around the path instead, but if the result is used to enter a peg, it can't be used as a move also. This doesn't end the turn. The additional roll of cowries can still be made, If a second chama or ashta is rolled, another peg is started onto the board. If a third chama or ashta is rolled, the turn is over and a third peg cannot be started. Each player's path is the same relative to their edge of the board. The path for player number 1 at the bottom of the image is shown here. If a player's single peg lands on a square occupied by an opponent's single peg, then the opponent's peg is killed. The killed peg returns to its owner, and the active player gets an extra turn. When multiple pegs are on the same space at the beginning of a turn, this can be 2, 3, or 4, these pegs can move together as one on that turn. A player moving 2 pegs to a place with 2 of an opponent's pegs already there, both of the opponent's pegs are killed. The number of attacking pegs must be equal to or greater than the pegs being killed. If not, they simply come to rest on the same space and share that space with the opposing pegs. If there are not enough open holes there to accommodate those pegs, they simply move to the next space along the path. This potentially splits up that group of moving pegs. Crossed boxes are safe spaces where pegs cannot be killed. A player cannot move a peg into the second ring of spaces on the board until they have killed at least one opposing peg. If they reach their starting square before killing another peg, they must continue moving around the outer spaces until they do. The objective, as you might have guessed, is to reach the inner space, the center of the board, by exact count. A peg moving into the center is removed from the game. The first player to get all 4 of their pegs to finish the course at the center space wins the game. As noted, there are many regional variations to the game. Just be sure that all the players agree on the rules to be followed before play begins. Chowka Bhara normally has this 5x5 square board and is played by 4 players with 4 pegs each. But the size of the board can be increased, and when it does, the number of pegs are also increased. So, for example, for a 7x7 board, each player has 6 pieces. For a 9x9 board, each player would have 8 pieces. And for an 11x11 board, if you want to do that, each player would have 10 pieces. Now, the 7x7 board can also be used for another popular Indian game called Ashtakashte. As you might expect, there are other names for Ashtakashte too. It's called Kolikadam in Hyderabad, or Shampul in some other parts of India. To further add to the confusion, the 7x7 game is also called Ashtachama, which is the Telugu name for Chowka Bhara. In Ashtakashte, each player has 4 pieces, and you follow a very simple spiral anti-clockwise path around the board to the center. Next in line for larger boards is Ashtapada, which is an 8x8 board, probably the most popular game board in India, used for a lot of different games. Now, I did a video on those already. I'll put that in the show notes here so you can go look at that if you're interested in more of the Indian race games. And all of those are related in many ways to Pachisi, which is a video I haven't done yet. But I will probably get around to doing a video about Pachisi and all its various incarnations. Meanwhile, Chowka Bhara is played on a 5x5 board with that switchback sort of a path around the board. Now, I've tried to track down commercial versions of Chowka Bhara since it's an old game, a very popular game that everybody seems to know in India, and I haven't been able to track any down. And that includes game companies in India. Now, if any of my Indian friends are watching this and they know of some, I'd be interested in checking out the link and just kind of see the variations in the quality and the artwork and stuff like that that are being used for commercial versions of the game. Meanwhile, NewVenture Games is going to be publishing a version of Chowka Bhara, and that's going to be included in our Kickstarter number 14. I'll put some current information in the show notes here, and if that campaign's still going, there'll be a link there so that you can get a copy of that. Otherwise, it will be in our catalog, I'm sure, by Christmas time, so you can order a copy of Chowka Bhara by then. As always, you can subscribe to our newsletter or like our Facebook page or Instagram to keep in touch with all the latest news about this game and about any of our games. And we'd be looking forward to see you there. But meanwhile, whether you play Chowka Bhara or any of the plethora of Indian games, be sure to play every day. In the 1960s, game historian R.C. Bell described a game that was related to these other games called Thiam or Diam. Of course, it has several other names. One of those names is Diacotti, which is another confusing point because Diacotti dice are applied to the dice, these four-sided brass dice that are very commonly used in India to play these games as an alternative to the cowries. Of course, they have a different probability result because of four-sided die versus the two-sided die. But nonetheless, if you're looking for Diacotti dice, you might find Thiam.